Good morning. Good morning. Today we are facing significant change and loss with the unexpected resignation and departure of Reverend Mitra. Today we will explore what it means to transform ourselves in the face of significant change. Let us breathe together this morning. Center ourselves. I'm the Reverend Alice Diebel, the sabbatical minister. Reverend Mitra Jafarzadeh will return next week and will be with us through the end of January. Our worship associate this morning is the board president, Melissa Rowland. You are welcome here, whether you are new or a longtime member. Let us enter this space of worship together, to be together, and to care together. We come together to honor our commitments and mourn our losses. Like a river that keeps moving, may we enter the flowing river with courage and care and love. Please rise in body, spirit, or voice and join in hymn, singing hymn 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Please join in the chalice lighting words that we say nearly every Sunday. Thank you. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, we care for each other and this church.
Please open your hymnal to page 144 for a responsive reading.
444.
I'm sorry, 444.
It's on the screen.
Congregation reads the italics. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. Please join me in our affirmation. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all we must hold the whole world in our hands.
This is the time in our service where we reflect our joys and sorrows through the ritual of placing stones in a bowl of sand. I invite you to please come forward if you wish. Speak silently your joy or sorrow and place it in the sand. If you are watching from at home and you want to make a public joy or sorrow, you can type it in the chat. And if you are in the sanctuary and you want to say something public, please write it down and bring it forward at this time. Melissa will light our lamp. The flame carries our energy forward even after this service ends. There are some things from the online community. Brian Snape is mourning the loss of a wonderfully compassionate human for this congregation, Reverend Mitra. And someone else who's anonymous is grateful that we have me to help and support during this time of change. Thank you. We're going to have a story. Yeah, Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Rhodes, and I am the Director of Programs for Children and Youth here. And I have a story for all ages for us today. I don't know that it happened quite this way, but I do know that it's true that long ago and far away, or more likely, recently and quite nearby, high up in the mountains, on a black cherry tree, an egg was laid on a leaf. And in the light of the full moon, out of that egg hatched a little brownish caterpillar with white markings that would look to any bird who might chance by like bird droppings. The caterpillar's name was Homer. Homer looked around in surprise and wonder to find himself alive in the world. "Better eat your egg casing, little friend," said a black and spiky caterpillar nearby. Homer did just that and then turned to look at his new friend. "Welcome to the world," said the other caterpillar, whose name was Alex. "It's delicious. Here, try some of this leaf." Together, the two caterpillars munched on leaves that spring, through rain and sun, sunrises and sunsets. They laughed together at the antics of baby birds and hid together under leaves that the black spiky caterpillar had collected so that the parent birds could not catch them. Alex taught Homer all he needed to know about life on a leaf: how to stay safe, how to munch, how to enjoy the feeling of the wind stirring the tree and the sun slowly warming the mountains each morning. Together they gazed each night up at the beautiful moon. But one day, the black spiky caterpillar started something totally new and different. "What are you doing?" asked Homer, as Alex carefully put down silk on the underside of a twig in the newest collection of leaves and began hanging upside down. "Making a chrysalis," said Alex. "A what?" "You'll see." And over the next couple of days, in the shelter of the leaves, the spiky black caterpillar shifted and shed its skin and became a strange, lumpy brown thing, hanging there, not making any conversation. What could this mean? For a week, Homer munched quietly by himself, watching the strange brown thing that used to be his friend, wondering and worrying as the strange, lumpy brown thing shifted in color and size and pattern. Then one day, out of the strange, lumpy brown chrysalis pushed an even stranger new creature. Homer watched as this new creature pumped blood into its black and white and bright orange wings, and unfurled a strange new mouth. cried Homer. Who? The new creature turned to look at him. Oh, little friend, it's still me, Alex. The one you laughed and hid and munched leaves and watched the moon with. But now I'm a butterfly. An admiral butterfly, to be specific, Alex said proudly. But you changed, cried Homer. You were as constant as the moon, and now you have changed. Alex smiled gently. Oh, friend, they said. We're supposed to change. Why, even the moon is different night to night. Sometimes we see all of it, sometimes only a sliver, and sometimes we can't see it at all. But I don't want to change, lamented Homer, scared and sad. Change is part of who we are, said the butterfly, who was Alex. And now our friendship must change too. I must fly away in search of flowers and other butterflies. And eventually I will fly south to stay warm in the winter. You must continue to eat and grow and stay safe from the birds. But you will change too. Just remember, you are loved. And whatever your body does, you are a beautiful friend. And I'm glad I know you. And with that, Alex took to the sky. All that summer, Homer the little brown caterpillar ate and grew and hid and watched the moon, which did indeed look a little different every night. Homer became a bigger brown caterpillar. His white splotch turned into two little eye shapes, so he looked like a fearsome little snake, and no birds ate him. Day by day, the seasons moved toward autumn. Finally, Homer found his own safe spot to hang upside down and shifted into a chrysalis. This was scary, but Homer remembered his friend and was brave. All winter, the chrysalis hung there, safe and still. In the spring, Homer felt himself stir, felt his new body shift once again, and wiggled free to find himself with a new mouth and different shape, and wings. Wings that were yellow and black and blue and orange and glorious. Oh my, said Homer, the Appalachian tiger swallowtail, gazing at himself in wonder and delight. And then he took off into the sky, up towards the bright moon, bold as a bird, up the broad sweep of the mountains. And that is the end of our story today. And I'm going to call a couple friends up to help us light our chalice to take our flame downstairs for our programming today. Thank you.
Will you join me, please, in a spirit of prayer, meditation? I invite you to breathe in this space, the connections we have with one another in the larger world. Living spirit that moves among us. We are in a hurting space right now. May we turn to one another for comfort. May we turn to one another to learn. May we turn to one another to act. These meditation words come from Richard Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. The cry comes out of the hurting heart of humanity. It comes from the lives of those battered with thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care, handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within, human beings, vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring, lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Amen. Blessed be. I invite you to give your gifts to the work of this congregation that is ongoing. We're grateful for your generosity.
Our reading is from Stephen Charleston, The Exchange. Sometimes faith is an exchange. We put down one thing so we can pick up another. For example, there may be no more room in our heart for love if they are taken up with anger. No more place in our minds for hope if we are too full of doubt. As simple as this seems, that exchange can often be one of the most difficult challenges we face emotionally. The grip of darkness is strong. Letting go of what we have grown accustomed to, even if it is harmful to us, is not always easy. Releasing the past to accept the future, that is the moment that so often defines the present. Faith grows not only by what we receive, but by what we recognize.
I originally titled this sermon, Return, Refreshed, and Renewed, because St. John's has just completed a sabbatical period where the minister has been away for 4 months. And it's also the new year, so it's a time for renewing our commitments and making resolutions. And as you all know by now, the return did not go as we had hoped. When you read the letter from Reverend Mitra that she plans to leave at the end of January, I can only imagine how worried some of you must have become. What will happen to us? There are many feelings among you. They're diverse: upset, unease, uncertainty, sadness, shock, anger, confusion, to name some of them. You feel it in your gut or your throat, shoulders? Breathe into those spaces. These transitions and times of significant change are really difficult. Now, usually at New Year's, I make some vague internal set of resolutions to do something better. I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to exercise more. You know, some of these little things that you say. I never say them out loud. And I don't really commit to them because I don't write them down. I don't say them out loud, but there's this constant drumbeat to get myself together. But since I don't spend any real energy, I don't make the space for these things, they don't happen. For so many of us, resolutions are committing to making a change. And change is a 4-letter word. Well, 6. And now, change is coming, ready or not. We're moving out of one space, out of one way of being, and into another. And there's a space in between those two times. It's an in-between space. It's sometimes called liminal space. It's a space for reflection and rest so we can move forward with new insights, new ways of being before we embark on this new path. We've been using the book Ladder to the Light by Indigenous author Stephen Charleston for several months now as a sort of a theme. Charleston's message is that from time to time, we need to enter a kiva, or an indigenous sacred space in the ground, kind of like a womb, a place of dark and quiet and holy rest. Eventually, with the passage of time, we start to climb out of the kiva, one rung of the ladder at a time. Eventually, we come out into the light of renewal and transformation. If we've used our time of sabbatical well, we will emerge ready to transform. I'm not sure you all spent your time in sabbatical well in holy quiet and rest, because you've been working really hard. I think that's partly my fault. You have done a lot these past 4 months. You've made a commitment to the children. We have Ashley Rhodes back as the Director of Programs for Children and Youth, and she's got children back in the building and volunteers helping. We have adult faith formation programs happening, including a recent class on conflict and communication. You're raising funds to make necessary repairs to this facility. And Found House is happening, a mission-oriented use for this building to house the homeless within it. Our soup and bread lunches to help our partner church have resumed. You've been busy. And all this work comes amidst a tumultuous time in global history. The world has changed. Unitarian Universalism is changing. There was a pandemic that hadn't been seen in 100 years that separated us and isolated us from one another. An insurrection at the Capitol 2 years ago, threatening our democracy like we've never seen before. A Speaker of the House couldn't be selected, something we've never seen for 100 years. Anger and divisiveness is spilling over into real life, not just on social media or political talk TV. And Unitarian Universalist values are needed more than ever, especially in this time of never before in our lifetime events that seem to keep happening. After 2 years of isolation and separation from one another, we face some losses. There are members who cannot attend because of risk of illness. Children who didn't find faith formation very helpful online have dropped away. Adults who have learned to do remote work are doing remote church. So the community sometimes feels a little smaller. And it's been hard on the minister and on all of you to learn to adapt to this changing world. And while we're starting to come back together more and more, we're not the same. Even our faith is changing, right? The sacred principles that have been our guide since 1985 are almost certainly going to be revised. The elected leaders of the Unitarian Universalist Association are turning our attention to the work of dismantling systems of racism and oppression as core to who we are. I have long felt if we can't do that work as UUs, what hope is there for this country? And yet, UUs are in conflict over this mission, over this focus. So what is our mission and how do we live into it? Are we only a place of intellect and ideas, or are we a place of action? What do we need to do to dismantle racism? And for St. John's, Islamophobia. It is time, my friends, to take stock of all of that if we're going to grow and transform. May this be our New Year's resolution stated out loud. Sometimes during social change, we don't see what's going on around us, right? And it's perhaps because we spent so much time trying to do church during a pandemic that we didn't pay attention to what we're supposed to be doing as people of faith in our shared religious tradition during challenging times. How do we learn and grow to transform ourselves into our best selves, especially as we dismantle the biases we hold within, personally, and within the institution? So often harm goes unnoticed by most of us, and so it is unacknowledged and unaddressed. This is what Reverend Mitra means when she calls out institutional racism or institutional Islamophobia. We need to begin to notice. We need to work through the challenges and disagreements that inevitably arise from the noticing during times of great change. There's that change word again. Didn't mean to swear at you this morning. But gee, wouldn't you rather just go back to normal? Wouldn't you rather just go back to normal? Maybe you want to return to the way things were. Perhaps a little nostalgia is at work among us. There was an NPR program called Throughline, and it had a segment on nostalgia. I encourage you to go listen to it. But the idea is that things were once better, and we want to go back to that time. It's a deep longing. Back in the 1600s, nostalgia was even considered a disease. But they couldn't cure it because they couldn't find the nostalgia bone. Nostalgia is more than just a positive memory of the past, that song I knew on my first date or something, It's really arises when we have lost control or we feel like we've lost control. It really emerges when social change is at its peak. The problem is we can't really go home. We can't really go back. And if we really look at the past, we will likely find that the memories we have don't tell the whole story. The memories may not be true for you, and they are especially not true for people who were not doing so well in the good old days. Were the 1950s really good for women or African Americans or the LGBTQ community? So do we long for the St. John's of the past when there was peace in the congregation? Well, for me, peace is not about avoiding conflict. It is about engaging our conflicts with open hearts, speaking truth, hearing truth. And what is true? Well, one's experience is true for that person. You know that story, right? The blindfolded men, they're all touching a different piece of the elephant. One touches the trunk and says it's a hose. One touches the leg and says it's a tree. It goes on, but when someone tells us they've been hurt, we believe them. And when someone says, just keep the peace, that could be code for just stop complaining. I have worked most of my adult life trying to find ways to deal with conflict because I've always found it difficult, right? And in spite of all the thinking and studying and practicing I've done, it is still hard. I stumble and fall, I inadvertently cause hurt, but it is important to come face to face with conflict to build understanding and change, to transitioning and transforming. It's the butterfly emerging. If I've learned anything, it is this hard work can be done with open minds and open hearts when it's done well. I've mentioned this person before, shame and vulnerability researcher Brene Brown. She talks about how we have to be strong to take on topics like Islamophobia and racism. We must be vulnerable when we do that work because we will stumble and fall, and we might cause pain and hurt as we do our best to try and address these things. In an interview with Buddhist leader Joan Halifax, Brown talks about the importance of having a strong back and an open heart. So we need to be strong enough to address racism and pain, but we don't do it by throwing stones at one another. Instead, we approach the other person with empathy. We are fragile like eggs. Even the group SURGE, SURGE stands for, it's an anti-racism group. I'm old. But even they say, we don't call people out, we call people in. So to try and address these things by calling people in, leaning in. So it's not about peace or absence of conflict, it's about care. Care for something larger than ourselves. And that is found in relationship with one another. This past Thursday, I was sitting in the county jail in a Bible study circle of women talking about Rahab. This is the woman who conspired with Joshua to bring down the walls of Jericho. But in the discussion about that story, the women were talking about how they were supportive of one another. One woman talked about how in her recovery work, she often felt like she was an outcast from society. She didn't fit in. But she said, in this circle, we support one another. We sit together in this circle and we lift each other up, outcasts, one and all. Wisdom. Wisdom there. When we're ready to climb the ladder up into the light, we will enter a time of transition. Our eyes must adjust to the changing light, and no matter how stubbornly we cling to the past, we can't avoid a time of transformation, especially now. Sikh activist and author Valerie Kaur, in her book See No Stranger, writes of transition during the labor of childbirth. We must breathe and push into something new, from the transition phase of labor to new life. She writes, transition is an imperfect metaphor. There is no point when a new society is born. We always find ourselves in the middle of a cycle. What matters is the choice to show up to the labor in front of you with the specific gifts you have been given to play your particular role. When we labor in love, we not only make future victories possible, we also begin to transform the world within us and around us, here and now. She goes on to say, I must remember to measure my success as a person, not by what I produce, but by my faithfulness to this labor. I want to last. I want you to last. I want to grow old. I want to grow old with you. And she says, I believe revolutionary love is our best chance as individuals and societies to stay in the fire long enough to deliver the world longing to be. Revolutionary love is a choice to enter into wonder and labor in order to transform the world around us. So let us not yearn for the good old days. Let us move out of the kiva and into the light. And so we return, but we don't return to the same place. The spiral moves forward, right? Sometimes tracing over the same ground, but with wisdom that propels us forward. It is like some indigenous populations don't mark time as linear, but rather the change of a season is not marked by a date on the calendar, but rather by what we observe around us. The first hard frost starts the winter. The first thunderstorm starts the spring. The date is not as important as what is happening around us. It's the context we have to notice. We have before us an opportunity to take stock of St. John's and where we stand in our commitments to this faith, to our mission, and to each other. We have it in us to work through conflicts and turn our faces to the light of transformation. We have it in us to spend real time in the kiva. In over 200 years, St. John's has gone through major transformations, from a German-speaking, multi-faith Christian church to a Unitarian church, from one building to another to suit the needs of the times, from countless ministers, each with a different style and approach, and none of them giving you everything you want, because no one can be everything to everyone. Each minister brought their uniqueness, creativity, and their labor to move St. John's through transition to birth or transformation. Are you willing to labor? In the coming months, you'll be hearing a lot about this time of transition. It is an opportunity. Give this transition some time. Lean into the opportunities an interim period might bring you. That's that time of study and reflection in the search to find a new minister, all done with the supportive guidance of a skilled interim minister. You'll hear more about this. Learn to address the problems and hurts around you, like Islamophobia, with a strong back and a soft front. You've got this, St. John's. You are a strong congregation with centuries of persistence and transformation. You have solid leadership with decades of experience and many resources available to you through the UUA. I know some of you will be shocked, afraid, concerned, angry, and all the feels. That'll go on for a while. Your feelings are real. You'll be moving into grief. You know that cycle, right? It begins with shock and disbelief and anger, and you move through it, each in your own way, in your own time. To get through it, you need each other. You need to get through it together. Turn toward one another with love. When angry, try breathing and talking, not lashing out. Hold each other accountable in love. Don't walk away now. Get creative. This is an opportunity. You're entering the kiva again. And as you start up the ladder of the kiva, please know that you are not alone. Amen. May it be so. I invite you to rise in body, spirit, or voice for hymn 83, Winds Be Still. We have a few announcements before our closing. Because this is a difficult time for everyone, I'm going to hold a Vespers service at 6 o'clock on Thursday. It will be in person here and also online. This will be a time for prayerful reflection. I hope you can join us. Next Sunday, Reverend Mitra will be back in the pulpit, and we're having a welcome back and farewell potluck for her after the service. So please bring something to share. I don't know who's coordinating or how, but bring food and join us to eat.
There's a sign up in Haley Hall. You could just indicate whether they're bringing it on prayer or side, etc.
Great. So if you couldn't hear that, Ann says there's a sign-up sheet in the social hall and or out in the gathering space in Henley, where you can sign up if you're bringing an appetizer, dessert, or whatever. So thank you. This should be a nice opportunity for us all. This afternoon, we are having a new to UU class. If you're new to Unitarian Universalism, I invite you to stay. This will begin at 12:30, and we'll talk about some of our history, so that should be of interest. We also have an announcement from the Capital Campaign Committee. Joetta, Bill, and Melissa, would you please come forward, or whoever's doing it? Matt.
Yes, and Matt.
Our sanctuary was built in 1960. During the past 60 years, we've used a do-it-yourself approach to fix various leaks in the sanctuary facade. Last April, we learned from engineers who are experts in building facades that major work would need to be required to fully restore our sanctuary facade. Just this week, Matthew Peterson, our property team leader, told the board and the master planning team that Jeff Flanagan had noted the windows in the sanctuary were especially leaky during the recent rain. There was a good amount of water Jeff had to clean up from the floor, and instead of 2 leaky windows, there are apparently now 5 that leak periodically. We are here this morning to give you an update about our plans to address this. Joining me this morning are the leaders from the master planning team. The board heard an important update from the master planning team this week.
Good morning, St. John's. My name is Matthew Cooperthwaite, and with me we have Joetta and Bill, and I guess Theodore as well. So as you know, St. John's has a master plan that includes a top priority, the restoration of the sanctuary facade. This will include replacing the windows and repair of damaged structural elements within the sanctuary. The master plan also includes many other possible building improvements that we want to make, which will depend on what we fundraise. Things like improved accessibility, improvements to the kitchen, and refreshing the Rosa Parks room.
Hi, folks. To do this important work for our church home, we needed to raise money. Planning for a capital campaign began in 2018 with St. John's members who were passionate about what our building could be. From the beginning, we had the support from Rachel Maxwell, our UU stewardship consultant. She estimated that we could raise $800,000 to $900,000, but we set an ambitious goal of $1 million, knowing that the more we raise, the more we can do to make our home better for the future. The campaign to continue the legacy launched with about 30 St. John's members serving as stewards and campaign managers. We want to thank all those who have been working with the campaign and all those who have pledged their support already. Will all those who have helped with the campaign as stewards please raise your hand? Look at that. Wow. I want to note that, yeah, that's it. Thank you for raising your hands.
Joetta and I are here to give you an interim report on the capital campaign results. As of today, we have received pledges totaling $1,010,000. Thank you. This was a huge accomplishment for our congregation, when frankly we didn't know for sure if we could achieve the stretch goal of $1 million. This can help us to be open to other ambitious goals that we may have and challenges we face as a community moving forward. And the campaign isn't done. The campaign will continue during the next 6 weeks because we know there are members and others who want the opportunity to contribute. They want to help make St. John's a more welcoming and dry place for future generations. It's our turn to build our future.
So our second update today is about our anticipated cash flow as we receive payments of pledges. Timing of when pledges are paid is one factor that impacts when we can begin work to restore the sanctuary facade. Here too we have some good news. So the master planning team has done a deep analysis of that cash flow. and our current projections regarding pledge payments indicate that many St. John donors are generously choosing to fulfill their pledges early. As a result, we anticipate having enough cash received from these payments to cover most of the expenses for the restoration of the sanctuary facade within the year. Based on our analysis, we presented this detailed information back to the board. We recommended that St. John's move forward and notify our contractor that we are ready to begin work on the restoration of the sanctuary this spring.
As a result of this update about the Continue the Legacy campaign, the board voted to approve the recommendation of the master plan team that St. John's notify the Beischel Building Company to begin work on the restoration of the sanctuary facade this spring. We have financial support from our members, and we know the work is needed sooner rather than later, right? Let's move forward. Join us for a piece of $1 million cake in Carl Pfeiffer after the service.
Thank you, team. Yeah. This is good news, especially in times of difficulty, to hear some spark of good news. And I know that there are other priorities that this money can be used for, like accessibility, making our faith formation spaces better for the children. So these contributions will go a long way to the future of this congregation, even as we have the ups and downs of change among us. We also have an announcement from Melissa, the president of the board, about January and beyond in this time.
So today marks the ending of Reverend Alice's time with us as sabbatical minister. Thankfully, this does not mean that her time with us is over. Please look forward to seeing Reverend Alice in the pulpit about once a month and assisting us in other ways as until we are provided with other ministerial support from the UUA. We thank Reverend Alice for her time with us in the last 4 months, and we look forward to another few months of support from her.
Thank you. We also want to mention that the board has been in touch with the Unitarian Universalist Association. Sharon Dittmar is our congregational life consultant. She's been working very closely with our board, with Melissa in particular. She'll be here the end of the month. We'll have opportunities to talk with her and talk about what's next. I invite you to lean into the opportunities this interim period might bring. This is the time of study that we have before we find a new minister. And it's all done with the support of really good people. This is a time to learn to address the problems and hurts around you with a strong back and a soft front. If you have any questions, please reach out to the board. We've had lots of emails and support, so if you don't hear right away or if you get a form report and you really want to talk, just reach out. Give me a call. Would you please join me in hymn 163? Please rise in body, spirit, or voice, for the earth forever turning. Our benediction comes from Beverly and David Bumbaugh, Universalists. Our church exists to proclaim the gospel that each human being is infinitely precious, that the meaning of our lives is hidden in the interactions with each other. We wish to be a church where we encounter each other with wonder, appreciation, and expectation, where we call out of each other our strengths, wisdom, and compassion that we never knew we had. Amen. Blessed be. Go in peace and return in love.